is the strategic posture of interpreting and responding to live conditions in the recruitment, admission, aid, and retention processes of higher education. Welcome to the Innovation Forge. In today's episode, we visit Adaptive Enrollment Management through the Forge Bellows. Let's see how innovation meets artistry as we forge something extraordinary together.
You are listening to the Innovation Forge, the #1 podcast on adaptive enrollment management, exploring the data, marketing, and strategy that fuels higher education. Here's your host, David Dysart.
Hello, Guilders, and welcome to another episode of the Innovation Forge. I am your host, David Dysart, and I'm thrilled you're joining me on this journey into the innovative world of higher education and adaptive enrollment management. The Firelit Foundry, why adaptive enrollment management demands craft. You don't enter a forge by accident. It's loud, it's hot, it smells of metal, charcoal, and tension. At first it seems chaotic, with sparks flying, hammers striking, smoke curling into the rafters. But you stay a while, and a rhythm begins to surface. Every motion serves a purpose, every strike carries meaning. Tools are not only used, they are understood. This is the mindset we need to bring to enrollment strategy today. The work of shaping a class, deploying financial aid, guiding applicants, and interpreting signals across a broad digital ecosystem is no longer a matter of best practice or best guesses or inherited routines. The field has changed, and those of us inside of it, a new posture is required. It's one that is at once analytical and interpretive, structured and flexible, strategic, yet deeply human. That's where the Forge Bellows begins. Not as a manual, not as a sermon. There are everyday artisans that record experiments, document alloy recipes, reflect on failed temperings, and preserve insights that might one day help another craft person facing the same flare of pressure. Over the next 12 chapters, I am poring over the work of 60 of these exceptional smiths to help sketch the journey of adaptive enrollment management. Links to the full articles or transcripts are provided. I hope that you visit their work and learn from them as I have while writing the Forge Bellows. This book is built for those who work in the heat. The demands of the modern forge. Higher education has long relied on traditions of stability. Fall yields were predictable, pipelines were steady, behavior followed patterns. Institutional success was more a matter of preservation than adaptation. That world is gone. Today's enrollment landscape is marked by volatility, demographic contractions, changing perceptions of value, financial uncertainty, and behavioral noise that obscures genuine student intent. The very assumptions that underpinned legacy models are now liabilities. What worked last year is no longer a viable plan. In that volatility, many institutions have turned to tools like CRMs, dashboards, models, marketing automation, all as a shield. But tools alone do not guarantee craftsmanship. A forge filled with equipment but devoid of vision will never produce a blade worth carrying. The central premise of the Forge Bellows is this: we must return to the mindset of artisanship in an enrollment strategy. We must learn to read the heat, listen to the metal, and strike when the moment calls for it. Adaptive enrollment management is not simply a new model. It's a new way of working. So, what is adaptive enrollment management? AIM, or Adaptive Enrollment Management, is the strategic posture of interpreting and responding to live conditions in the recruitment, admission, aid, and retention processes of higher education. It requires the fusion of data, interpretation, system design, financial modeling, student behavior analysis, and cross-functional decision-making. It moves beyond fixed cycles or tactical campaigns. Instead, it prioritizes feedback loops, strategic visibility, behavioral shifts, early intervention. Think of it this way. Where traditional enrollment management plans the journey before it begins, AIM builds the map as it walks. It's not improvisation, but it is an improvisational readiness rooted in strong instrumentation, shared language, and a willingness to restrike the plan when the metal cools too quickly or bends too far. That work, however, does not happen in isolation. Enter the Forge. The Forge is not a metaphor for chaos. It's a metaphor for creation under pressure. In this book, the Forge represents the enrollment office. Not as it is, but as it could be. A place where tools are selected with intent, not just habit. Where metrics are shaped around decision-making, not dashboards. Where collaboration is built into the walls, not tacked on through meetings. And where every team member understands not just their task, but the greater object being forged. The Forge Bellows draws on this metaphor to organize its chapters, signal its values, and guide its advice. Each chapter centers on a different aspect of the modern enrollment ecosystem. From configurable joins, yes, Slate will be in this book as well, and behavioral signals to aid modeling and staff rhythms. Each one includes a series of curated article summaries, reflections, and blueprint breakdowns. The concise takeaways designed for direct application. The metaphor isn't cute, it's clarifying. Because when you treat your office like a forge, you stop expecting it to work without effort. You begin to expect the smoke, the sparks, the failure, and in doing so you create the conditions for real refinement. Who is this book for? This book is written for the Slate-Wright who configures their CRM with craft. For the VP who understands that leadership, well, it's not about preserving yesterday's model, it's about enabling tomorrow's. And for the financial aid analyst, who sees strategy not in dollars alone, but in the signals they trigger. For the marketing director, who knows that student attention is a fragile, fleeting flame. For the admission counselor, who has watched the cycle shift beneath their feet and wants to know what comes next. More than that, it is written for teams. Because one forge smith cannot shape a blade alone. Enrollment strategy, at its best, is a collective act. The coordinated application of tools, time, and tension toward a shared result. This book should be read aloud in team meetings, annotated with marginalia, used to train new hires and form strategic plans, or simply spark the next internal workshop. It is both reference and provocation. What you'll find inside. The Forge Bellows is divided into 12 core chapters, each representing a major domain of AIM thinking. Within each, you'll find 5 article-based entries, the distilled analysis of current trends, strategic ideas, or technical advice, paired with commentary and blueprint breakdowns. You'll also find metaphor carried throughout, because sometimes the best way to describe a complex strategic maneuver is through the language of iron and flame. The final chapter introduces a new toolset for forward motion, a series of postures and habits that define what it means to be an adaptive office. This includes structural shifts, cross-functional planning, AI-informed metric systems, and more. Together, the book aims not to be exhaustive, but directional. Not a single artifact, but a working grimoire that is part guidebook, part workshop journal, and part spark. The ethics of the Forge. In every piece of Forge work, there is risk. Strike too soon, and the metal is brittle. Wait too long, and it will not bend. Overheat, and the shape distorts. Misalign your hammer, and the fracture runs deep. So too in enrollment. Our work is not abstract. It affects lives, dollars, futures. When we model behavior, we decide who is seen. When we deploy aid, we decide who is supported. When we score, rank, segment, and message, we enact values, whether it's intentional or not. The Forge is not neutral. It reflects the intention of the blacksmith. That's why adaptive enrollment management must be grounded in ethical reflection. Equity, transparency, and mission alignment are not accessories. They are the essential elements of the alloy. Otherwise, we're not forging strategy. We forge inequity, dressed in the tools of insight. This book does not pretend to have all the answers, but it insists on better questions. It invites practitioners to interrogate the shape of their work and the consequences it carries. You are already holding the hammer. If you're reading this, you are likely already practicing some form of metricurgy, signalcraft, or metallurgy. You may not have called it AIM, You may not have used the Forge metaphor, even. But you have been doing the work. This book is not a beginning. It's a continuation, a consolidation, a mirror. Use it to check your temperature, compare tools, tune your process, reframe your routines, and most of all, use it as permission to work differently, to build rhythms that match the speed of change, to trust your signal interpretations, to shape your dashboards and communications like the artisan you are. Because that's what this moment calls for. Not the next trendy acronym, though AIM is great. Not another outside consultant. It calls for Forge masters inside the institution, slate writes and signal readers, leaders who strike with precision, analysts who know that a good metric is one that tells you when to pivot. We don't need better ideas, we need better strikes. If you enjoyed today's episode, please grow the guild by rating and reviewing the Innovation Forge podcast, or sharing it with a colleague who needs to hear about these creative crossovers in education. The best review or comment every month will get an ebook of my book, of course. Particularly great ones will also be featured on future episodes. Thank you so much for joining me in the workshop today. Remember to strike true, and let's forge something extraordinary together.
The furnace hums before the dawn, steel and silence nearly gone. Yesterday's molds lie cracked and spent, new fires rise where old forms bent. We built this forge from failed campaigns, from ghosted clicks and FAFSA stains. Each ember stoked with lessons burned, each strike a pattern relearned. So bring your tools, bring your doubts, bring the data you almost threw out. We don't fear collapse or cracks. We trace the fault lines, then strike back. The Forge Bellows, we breathe deep. In this fire, what we forge we keep. The heat reveals, the hammer molds. This isn't survival, this is bold. Strike, measure, temper, bend, shape what breaks and build again. We are the makers of maps unshown. We forge by fire, but not alone. Cores rust and models fade, but we still shape the student art's blade. Not with guesses, not with noise, but with joined up logic, tuned by choice. The funnel narrowed, then split in two, so we built bridges the fire could chew. Craft and care in every weld, admissions isn't sold, it's spelled. One more form unfinished, one more log and tract, one more counselor asking, do they come back? We listen in the code, we listen in the gaps. The forge doesn't promise, it reveals through collapse. The Forge Bellows, strike again. Let the fire teach what the trends won't send. Not just models, not just plans, but hearts that hold with blackened hands. Strike, measure, temper, bend, shape what breaks and build again. We are the voice behind the flame, the bellows breath, the forge, the name.